Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a young lady that I've had the pleasure of knowing, probably about 13 years or so. It's been a while since we've had a chance to catch up with one another. She's very passionate about the education of our young people and just a adorable person to be around, just a very bubbly personality, big smile, and most importantly, she is a woman of God who understands her assignment, her purpose, and she's walking in that. And she's taking some time out of her very busy schedule to hang out with us this evening to share a little bit about her journey, her story, with the hopes of inspiring and encouraging and uplifting others, especially during times of challenging moments and adversity. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you Miss Makeda Lands. Makeda, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for that warm introduction. I appreciate it. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, before we jump into our segments for the day, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a little snippet about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Kind of give our listeners an opportunity to get a taste of who is Makeda Lands.
Mhm. Well, again, my name is Makeda Lands. I am first and foremost a child of God. I am a daughter. I am a sibling. I am the youngest of 11 siblings, so I am the baby. I like to call myself the baby amongst my siblings. I am a servant leader. I am an artist. I'm a teaching artist, and I currently serve as the associate director of admission at Butler University, where I have the opportunity to serve in multiple capacities.
Awesome, awesome, and like I said, if any of you, I know some of you may not, be knowing about Makeda and what she does. I mean, when I tell you, she is one of the biggest cheerleaders of these young people and just trying to make sure that they have opportunities and lanes to be successful in life. It's there's no words to put to that, the beauty behind that. And even, we were sharing before our episode began, just how long it's been since she seen my own daughter, who at that time was probably about three last time she seen her, and now she's 16. And just even then, just your passion and love for the kids. I mean, they were you were their first faces that your first face that they got to see in the mornings when we're dropping them off, and so it's just incredible, just the impact that you have, and now that you're continuing that path and doing it on bigger platforms is just really something to be admired, and I'm proud of you and excited about what God still has in store for you to do and walking in your purpose. So thank you again for sharing that little snippet. But we're gonna find out more about you. We're gonna learn a little bit more about you. So, um, Makeda, when we talk about our journeys, our stories in life, I'm a firm believer that in order for us to truly capture the full essence of what our story is all about, we cannot be remiss in starting back to where it all begins. And so that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to kind of go back to the beginning. And so, if you would, journey back with me on that and kind of reflect back on what childhood was like for you. I mean, you come from a big family, you're the youngest of 11, growing up in Indianapolis. If you would kind of walk us through what was that growing up like for you in terms of like fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there was any
Yeah.
specific challenges that come to mind, you can share those as well. Kind of give us the crux of where this story begins.
Oh, where do I start? My childhood was amazing. I really enjoyed my childhood. Big family, weekends at grandparents' house or going to the dollar movie with my older siblings. Um, One thing that was very constant in my childhood was our faith, going to church, church walk-ins, giving back. My mom always worked in the community relations or the community engagement aspect of her career. So we did things like food pantry. So we would pack bags, and my mom would like rent trucks from gleaners, and we would pass out food like to the homeless or to the people in need, or hanging just around in her community center. She ran a community center where she helped as individuals who needed assistance, like with their water bills or with any of their light bills. She helped individuals when it came to English as a second language, senior citizens. So I've always grew up. I've always grown up giving back to my community, giving back to others, experiencing servant leaderships, hanging out with my siblings in theater, being part of the Asante Children's Theater, and building a community there. So it was just very fun, very engaging, very. It was a good foundation for me. When I look back now, in my 30s, back, and realize I just always realize that God makes no mistakes. Because, you would complain as a child, like, why do I have to spend my weekends doing this?
Right.
Or why do I have to go to the church lock in? Or why do I have to um, hang out with mom at work all the time? But just being a part of that environment growing up, I realized the foundation that was given to me and how the Lord truly ordered my steps and my siblings' steps, and guided us through so many um, different challenges, because of course it wasn't perfect. A lot of stuff was sheltered, or we were sheltered from a lot of things that we didn't know until we got older. um, like, I didn't know that I grew up in what you would consider the hood because we never went without. We never went without, like, eating beans and rice. That's my favorite meal to this day. But I didn't know that like other people were eating dinners at night. So it's just the simplicities of life and the appreciation for the sacrifice. And even though we didn't have a lot, we were able to give a lot of our time and our talents to others. And I just appreciate that. But I really enjoyed my childhood, from all of the fun things to all of the service and all of the other challenges. It really made me who I am, and I appreciate it.
Wow, that's awesome. And again, when as you were telling that story, I'm just thinking, with it being 11 of you, and for your parents to, make a big deal about, the service orientation of it all in that foundational basis in your life. I mean, it really right out the gate, it speaks to why you do what you're doing right now. And to your point, I mean, you're exactly right when you say, as a kid, when we're going through this kind of stuff, we're fussing, we're complaining. I want to go out and play. I want to
Mhm.
do this. I want to do that. Why do we have to do these other things? Not knowing that these pieces were all coming together to shape you into being the type of person, having the type of empathy, the level of desire to serve and pour into others. You had to go through that to prepare
Yeah.
yourself for what was going to take place decades later. But
Mhm.
so now it's just a natural part of who you are. And
Yeah.
and that speaks volumes, and it is wonderful, if you will, to who God is. This, like you said,
Yes.
He makes no
Yes.
mistakes.
At
You
all.
know, whether it's something like this, or even if it's something that's a little bit more challenging that you might go through, that may seem
Mhm.
rough, that may seem unfair, but nevertheless, God is positioning you to be prepared, to be ready, for what He has in store for you in terms of walking in your purpose, which is exactly
Mhm.
where you find yourself to this day. And
Mhm.
of course, I can't skip over the part about how a lot of times many of us have grown up and not knowing that we didn't have a whole lot, because again, that's a testament to your parents. Just creating an environment of love and support to where you didn't even click into, oh, we're lacking this or we're lacking that, because like you stated, we really weren't lacking anything.
Mm-mm.
you
Nope.
know and that mindset is so different in comparison to young people of today, who can look into a refrigerator full of food, and or a pantry
Yes.
full of food, and say that there's nothing here to eat, or
Yeah.
or complain about things that we might have dreamed about. We wish we had that complaint to to
Mhm.
have, so this is awesome to kind of reflect on those moments. And I can only
Yeah.
imagine what that must have been like, growing up in a big family. I mean, me being the only child,
Mhm.
it's like night and day
Mhm.
to that. And for you to be
Mhm.
the youngest and to have 10 other siblings, I mean, that just has to
Yes.
be tons of fun, tons of fond memories to share. And so I can only imagine that was, again, just a great environment to come up in. So appreciate you sharing that. So, Makeda, as we, travel through our childhood and eventually get into the adult stages and our experiences, become more broadened, especially I'm sure in your case where you said you felt like, you're a bit sheltered to a certain degree.
Mhm.
And with those experiences, not only are there lessons that we learn in life, but from time to time, there are some storms that come our way that, for lack of a better way of saying it, they hit a little different. It's sometimes we get hit
Mhm.
with storms that are not just the traditional quick fix type moments. They kind of weigh on us in a way that we might question. Even you being a woman of faith, you might
Mhm.
question, might have doubts like, how am I supposed to get through this? Why am I going through this particular situation? I don't know, how I'm going to overcome this moment of pressure and stress and frustration and that feeling of overwhelmness. So with that said, if you would tell us about a time when you felt like you were in that type of situation where you were hit with a storm that you just couldn't process it like you usually maybe are good at doing. This was a bit much. This was a bit heavier on you. You had doubts, you had fears, you had concerns. Obviously, you're here today, so we trust and believe that
Mhm.
God navigated you through it. But at that time, in that moment, it didn't quite feel like that. It didn't quite look like that there was a way out or a way through. So if you would kind of walk us through what that situation was like, whatever story you choose to share, what that situation was like for you, and what was ultimately that turning point where you began to see some bit of light at the end of the tunnel as you were coming up out of that storm.
Yeah, you know what? That's life, right? Storms, like you can't go through life without any storms or without any challenges. Um, I would say that the biggest storm that I've gone through was losing both of my parents. First, my mom. I lost my mom in 2015, right after I turned 30 years old. Right after I brought my first home, she was blessed to be able to walk through my home with me that I brought. Right after I started a new career in higher education, I was like at the peak of everything. I was, what was it, living my best life. You couldn't tell
Mm-hmm.
me anything. Um, I was in what I thought was a healthy relationship, and I was just very happy and blessed and thankful to God. And then it hit me the news that my mom had cancer and she was fighting this battle, and I was not. Foreign to losing someone. I felt like I had elderly parents, or what you would call older parents, considered for my age. As you know, I'm the youngest of 11, so
Mm-hmm.
my parents were like in their 30s, 50s when they had me. So I was able to have good relationships and get to know my grandparents. So I lost my grandparents. I lost cousins. I lost uncles. So I wasn't foreign to death and what that meant. As I mentioned, I came from a family of faith. I know death is a part of life and it's going to happen, but I still was not expecting going through life or having to go through life without my mom starting at 30 years old. For whatever reason, I just thought she was invincible. Um, so when I got that news and she ended up beating cancer, but it ended up coming back and she was um, sick. She didn't pass away from cancer. We still don't know exactly what she passed away from, but she ended up getting sick again. And I remember I was coming from an event, and my sister called and told me it just randomly happened. We just talked with my mom. She was supposed to come over to my new home and the whole family and have Christmas, that she just randomly passed away in her sleep. And when I tell you that I was both at peace, and it was the most scariest moment and most challenging moment in my life. I really just don't even know how to explain it. Um, I feel like looking back on it and how I've gotten through my mom's passing, I feel like, again, like I was prepared. Like I said, I've had so many different losses that hurt, but nothing hurt as much as losing my mom. Um, and just the peace that surpasses all understanding, the trust in God, the framework and the foundation that she built. Not to say that I wasn't upset, not to say that I didn't have any questions, but the more I prayed and the more I talked to God and the family that surrounded me, and I realized how much she lives inside of me and through the work that I do, it gives me more peace and it gives me more understanding. And then just seeing how God has moved in my life, I thought I was living my best life then. just being able to give back to my the students that I serve, the family that I serve, to my community in so many different capacities. Um, it helps me get through that challenging time. And then 5 years later, I lost my father.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, Lord, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to do? And my dad helped me get through that transition with my mom. Talk to her. She's right there with you. Um, she loved you. Uh, those memories you have, those will live on forever. Do go eat for her birthday. Go eat her favorite meal, like trying to keep her memory alive. Do things that she would do. Go places that she would go. So when my father passed, those that advice and those thoughts were in my mind when he passed. Like he's right here with you. He's inside you. He will never leave you. Um, so just navigating that, and I know that it's always going to be a challenge, and I know that it will never um the hurt and the pain will never go away, but it's just this peace, this unexplainable peace that I have every time I allow myself to feel that hurt, I allow myself to feel that pain, I allow myself to cry. But then I think about the years that I was able to have with them, and I think about children who lost their parents during birth, and I think about children who lost their parents at a younger age than me, or even at an older age, and just appreciating the times that I have. So every time I um, feel like I want to go into a depressed state, or I have a certain, or I feel like I don't want to get up, it's a struggle, because there were times and there were days where I literally had to talk myself into getting out of bed. But once I got up,
Mhm.
um, the day I realized that I really just didn't have any choice in the matter but to keep going, if not for me, if not for myself, for my parents, and that this state in my journey, and getting over that challenging situation, if you may, I realized that I can't continue to do stuff for my parents and to build their legacy. Yes, that's there, but I have to do it for me too.
Mhm.
If I have to do it for me, I have to live for me. I have to figure out what I want, and how I want my legacy to be. And I've realized in that journey that everything I want is what my parents wanted for me, and what I've seen my parents do. Um, and all of that, to God makes no mistakes. I remember my mom saying to me, you all need to have coping skills growing up. 'Cause, all of our siblings, and I was the baby, and I would not know how to cope if I didn't get my way or do the same. She's like, you need to have coping skills growing up. And it's like, have you talked to Jesus today? Or did you wake up in the morning? Have you spent time reading your word today? All of that. And just the time when that extra year I had from when my mom was diagnosed, um, the time that I had to thank her, to love on her, God gave me that extra time. The extra time that I had when my dad was sick, and then he ended up being in hospice. I got to tell him that I love him. I got to tell him that I thanked him, and I got to tell my. Everyone doesn't get that opportunity, so appreciating and remembering those good times and how God showed grace and mercy and favor to us throughout those times where I'm feeling like I want to give up, or I don't want to get out of bed. So I know that's like a lot. I don't know if that made
No, you
sense,
good.
but that definitely would be the most challenging time that I have experienced, and at the same time the most peaceful and the most explainable experience that I have gone through. If I thought I was strong before, and if I thought I was living my best life, I didn't know what I was thinking, but I didn't realize how strong I was until I got over that little hurdle. And I know there will be more hurdles that I will have to continue to get over, and that it's just something that I'm just going to have to live with, and I choose to live and not just exist. So, yeah.
Love that. Love that. I appreciate your transparency and sharing as you did here. You know, losing parents, this is something that you don't wish on anybody, even though you know that that's a reality that many of us will face one day. And especially if you had a really close bond, as you did in your
Mhm.
case, with your parents. A few takeaways that in hearing you share this. One, I love the fact that you made it a point to say, you know what, it was like there was this pain of the loss, but then there was also the peace that you felt. I totally connect with that. And losing my own mom, back in 2011, that's exactly what it was like for me. It was like, as you stated, it's something that you'll never get over, but it is something that you have the ability to get through. You have the
Mhm.
ability to move forward. You'll always, you'll never forget,
Mhm.
your parents. You'll never, that hurt, that absence will never go away. But it's something about parents who take the time to prepare you for such a moment.
Mhm.
They may not use the word death or whatever, but like you just shared earlier about, my mom talked about, I got to learn how to have coping skills, and she made the connection between coping skills to, have you talked with Jesus today? Have you been in your word today? Because those are the essences of our strength and being able to, quote unquote, cope, particularly
Mhm.
during challenging times such as this, when it gets really
Yes.
heavy like that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, your coping skills need to be tight.
Yeah.
And who better for those coping skills to be tight in
Mhm.
is with through your relationship with God, because a lot of times we emphasize our coping skills, but we try to emphasize coping on our own, or trying to do it
Yeah.
on our own
Or
strength, on
leaning
our
on
own,
others.
or
Or
leaning on
leaning on
others.
others. I have 11 siblings. Everyone processes it different. I couldn't lean on them. They were going through their own journey, or leaning on friends. Not saying that there's not a time and place for that, but like God is your source at the end of
Right.
the day.
And that's so critical, and that even that
Mhm.
source piece, because like I said,
Mhm.
whether it's me, if I make the mistake of trying to be leaning too much on friends and family, sometimes we can even choose other unhealthy sources that we lean
Yes.
into,
Mhm.
thinking that's going to fix it. And while it may give us a temporary sense of comfort, it's also
Mhm.
something that if we indulge too much in it, it could actually be fatal to us. But
Yeah.
the thing about God is you can lean into him 24
Mhm.
7, and you could never OD on him, to
Yeah.
where it would be hurtful to you and harmful to you in any way. And so
Mhm.
I love that. And then I love the fact, and again, I could, as you were telling this, I could just hear my mom speaking that to me as well about, you know, when parents, they want you to at some point, you got to like live your life. There has to be a point where, yeah, it's admirable, it's great that you are loving and devoted to your parents, and you want to make them proud and all that. You may even do certain things to honor their legacy. I've followed you on social media where some of the works that you've done in your career path and in your purpose. You paid homage to your parents in that regard. But at some point, and there's nothing wrong with this, at some point your legacy has to stand on its own, that
Mhm.
that you build for you. And it's not
Yes.
that you're being selfish
Mhm.
or anything like that. It's, but I got to have my own lane. There's got to be a time
Mhm.
where it's now my life to live. It's now my
Yes.
my walk to walk. It's now my mark to make. And it has to
Mhm.
be all on me. And what I grabbed from my parents is, again, all those lessons, all of those
Mhm.
words of wisdom. And I don't know
Mhm.
about you, but I think it's fair to say, those times when I felt myself, most troubled and confused about stuff, how God will bring to memory some of those
Mhm.
conversations that we had,
Yeah.
with your,
Mhm.
again, with your, whether it's with your mom or with your dad, and just like,
Mhm.
and it's almost like they're sitting right there talking to you and be like, yeah,
Yeah.
you told me that. Yep.
And it
This.
brings that smile and that warm feeling back. Yep.
Right, right. And you might have, in that moment, you might have felt like it was a lecture at that time, but it, but but
Mhm.
but it, but that's where that peace part comes in. It feels
Yep.
different now. It
Mhm.
calms me. It keeps me from panicking and freaking out because
Mhm.
I'm in the middle of a chaotic situation or anything like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, all of those things are huge, especially in the when you're talking about a storm that involves grieving. Because as you stated, we all grieve differently. We all
Mhm.
grieve differently, but we also serve a God that, if you're in relationship with him, he can provide
Yeah.
a peace, a joy, a calm that will just help you work through that. He'll help
Mhm.
bring that pain down to a controllable level, to where, like you said, those days when you might have not felt like getting up out of that bed, you might have just, you wanted to be, a participant in that pity party in that depressing moment. And God says,
Mhm.
no, 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 we're not gonna do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Come on,
Mhm.
let's get on up here. You're gonna be all
Yep.
right. I got you. Just as long as you know that I got you, you're gonna be okay. And it's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with you shedding a tear every now and then, feeling
Mhm.
some kind of way every now and then because you're missing them, you're reflecting on that, but you just don't want to you just don't want to stay stuck in
Correct.
that funk, if you will. And so again, God is just through his power, through his love for us, he's able to just help us to stay out of that zone, because the enemy wants us to stay stuck there. He wants us to be all
Mhm.
moping around and down and out and just giving up on life in the world, like as if we have nothing else to live for.
Mhm.
And then I think also one last thing, the fact that you grew up in a family of faith, that peace comes over you because and you reflect on the fact that absence from the body is present with the Lord. So
Yes.
me
Amen.
that gives me the hope that of knowing that we will see each other again.
Mhm.
So that in itself is also another critical piece that helps you to be okay. We're just away for right now. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
my thing, and we'll see each other later. We'll catch up then. So that all plays a role in helping us get through our challenging moments in time. So again, I appreciate you sharing that, because it just so many lessons to draw
Mhm.
from that, and I hope that our listeners are grasping hold of these nuggets that you're dropping in the sharing of your story. So Makeda, when we are going through our storms, of course, all of them are not going to be, major storms like, passing of parents or
Mhm.
anything like that. Sometimes we encounter storms that are just, just day to day life, just lifing
Mhm.
type stuff. But nevertheless, everybody has their way of, as we used the word earlier, coping and processing. So what I'm
Mhm.
curious to know from you is, when you do find yourself facing challenging times, moments of adversity, again, whether it's big stuff or small stuff, I'm curious to know, what is your process? What is the routine or regiment that you like to execute that kind of helps you to process through or deal with challenging moments in a healthy way, but nevertheless a way that works best for you? What does that look
Mhm.
like for you?
Um, I'm a kind of so I like to consider myself. I tell people this all this time. I'm not an what is it? Ambivert, an ambivert. Is that what
Hmm.
it's called? But I am an introvert with extrovert tendencies. Is what I like to say. I process internally, and I think that confuses a lot of people because I will go like away to process it on my healing journey, and a lot of people that are close to me, they always get worried about me. They're like checking on me, like, "Are you okay?" Like, especially like when if I had a bad breakup, or if I had like an issue with a job, or a job transition, or when my parents, like, I'm an internal processor. And I really like to do things that make me think and make me happy during that transition. So I like going for walks. I am a walker. I really like being one with nature. It makes me feel, for one, it makes me feel closer to my parents. It makes me feel closer to God, and it makes me get in tune with myself. I don't even like listen to music and wear headphones when I go for a walk. Now, when I'm in my house and I'm processing, like, I'll blast my music. I like to cook. I like to work in my garden. Um, of course, going to church, reading my word, or just sitting in silence. I think we take for granted um, sitting in silence, meditating, knowing ourselves, knowing our wants, knowing our needs. And we feel like we always have to be surrounded by something, or listening to something, or doing something. But just being still, I have learned the power of being still the older I get. Less TV I want to watch, the less music I want to take in, the more I'm mindful of who I'm around, what I take in, what I do, how I spend my time. So really getting to know me, and in turn getting to know God more, and the God that's inside of me, really helps me kind of like process. Of course, I like to have fun. Of course, I like to hang out with my friends. But when I'm processing or needing to make like life decisions, or going through something that's going to affect my future or the future of others around me, I am a very like internal processor, and then I might to a trusted source or a trusted mentor. Um, and get their feedback. But I like to be still and I like to listen to what God is telling me. I know people like to say the universe. I like to say God. I believe it's God. Listen to what God is speaking and is saying to me in those dark times, or trying to find the lesson in it. I always feel like there's a lesson in everything that we do. I've never felt like well, I would say I never. When I was younger, I always felt that that failure word would come up. I hate that word now. I just feel like there's a lesson. I really, honestly, truly feel like God makes no mistakes. Like there is purpose in your pain, there is purpose in your loss. I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have been at that front desk if I was not obedient to God. If I didn't go through um, a challenging time in my life, and I just look back now and I'm like, Lord, that's why I ended up there. So listening and finding the reasoning and the lesson in the situation, and it doesn't always come on time, or it doesn't always come when I think it's going to come. I can go back to my regular everyday life. I could be at brunch with my friends, and then the answer would come there through the most random time. I'm like, oh Lord, that's what you was trying to say. Okay, I get it now. Or I could be in Bible study, or I could be at church and a song that I haven't heard in forever is being sung during worship, and I'm like, I get it now, God. Like that's my answer. So I'm very internal when it comes to processing, and very to myself. But I do not take for granted the power of community as well. I know that there's a time and place to allow others and to open your heart and your ears to others' wisdoms and knowledge and skills. But God is always my source first, and I'm always going to lean into Him before I take anything to anyone else or anything else.
Love that. Love that. And I think again the big thing that stands out to me is when you talked about the importance of being still.
Mhm.
Um, there's just something about just sitting still and just letting it all soak in, and so that you can actually hear God. I know my current pastor, he spoke about this recently, and he said, sometimes we don't um know if God is answering our prayers because we're so busy talking that we don't
Mhm.
take time. We'll talk and talk. Lord, pray for this, pray for that, and that's all. That's good. But at some point, you got to, like, when you're asking, I need help with this. At some point, you got to stop talking so you can
Mhm.
get the answer. And connected with that, of course, have the patience, because God
Mhm.
is not going to always give you that answer right now.
Mhm.
We can't treat God like a microwave oven where He's just supposed
Mhm.
to just snap and respond to us. Sometimes He'll do things like what you spoke to. You'll be doing something completely unrelated, and
Yep.
a song will come on the radio, or somebody will make a comment. Something
Mhm.
something will take place and when it happens, it instantly clicks. You'll know that this is
Mhm.
God speaking to you, but you've opened yourself up to receive what He has to say, and you've allowed yourself to be patient in the process. I'm gonna wait. I just know that in your perfect timing, in your perfect way, even if I don't understand it, it may seem like it's the weirdest moment in time, the most awkward scenario, but you're gonna speak to me, and I'm gonna know it's you, and I'm gonna know it's directly connected to whatever that challenge was that I brought to you to ask you to give me guidance and direction on. And that's just how He operates. It's just one of those things that, if you know, if you're in a relationship with
Mhm.
Him, and you've tried Him in that regard, that's just how He does. I mean, it's
Mhm.
and it's a beautiful thing, and it's amazing to see, that He just is, strategic like that, to where He
Yeah.
just drop it. What appears to be, and a lot of times you get concerned about saying the word random, because, another good friend of mine, she's like, there's nothing about God that's random. It's
Mhm.
very precise. It's very,
Very
so
strategic, very
yeah, very
intentional and
strategic. Yeah,
purposeful.
it was
Yeah.
supposed to
Mhm.
happen. Yeah, just in that
Mhm.
very moment when you were walking to the mailbox to get your
Yep.
mail, that was the exact time that He was planning on telling you that. I know the two events are totally unrelated, but that's when you were supposed to know, and that's when you were going to
Yep.
pick it up. So that's just how He is. That's why He
Mhm.
says, that's why they say His thoughts are not our thoughts, His ways are not our
Yeah.
ways. It's a reason for that, because that's just how He moves. So awesome, awesome. So Makeda, if you had a chance, if you had a chance to speak to the younger Makeda, or perhaps maybe somebody that's like what she used to be, kind of going through some experiences, some of those experiences, including storms, not really knowing what it
Mhm.
all means, trying to make sense of it all, maybe even feeling like life is unfair sometimes, if
Mhm.
you would, what would be your advice or your words of encouragement that you would have to somebody that's maybe struggling with how to deal with difficult and challenging times, and they just need a solid plan, a solid mindset, if you will, of how to work through those challenging moments and not just look at them as things that are bad that is happening in my life, but actually look at them as opportunities for you to grow and develop and to level up to where God is leading you to be. What would those words of encouragement be from you?
Don't give up. Trust the process. And if you do not know God as your father and God as your source, get to know him. Um, and enjoy the journey. And I would say enjoy the journey as enjoy the good of the journey, the bad of the journey, find the lessons and the blessings in the journey, and allow yourself to feel whatever you need to feel in that moment. It's okay as long as you're not hurting yourself, as long as you're not hurting others, as long as you get up every day and you do what you are allowed to feel whatever you need to feel. I always say, if I knew I read somewhere where an individual said that they gave themselves a set amount of time to feel how they felt, and then they would do what they needed to do, and that was it. Like if they were needed to cry, if they needed to scream, if they needed to lay in bed, whether there was 5, 10 minutes, a half an hour, after that it was up, it was time to get to it. If I knew that that during my little college breakup, during my career transition, when I didn't know what I wanted to do, during when people were making me upset and making me feel like that I wasn't doing enough, um, I would have done that. Like I would have given myself enough, and then I did everything I needed to do to prove those people wrong.
Mm, yeah.
Also, I would say date yourself. I started doing that when I was like in my 20s, whether I was in a relationship, whether I had a friend group, whatever the case may be. I would take myself out on dates. And it could be to a movie, it could be for a walk, it could be for a dinner, learning how to spend time with yourself and learn from yourself and find that peace and that joy, because we often, especially as young Black women, we give a lot, but we give to others. We do a lot of service, we love very hard, but we don't love ourselves enough. And I feel like it's important for you to really know who you are, really know what you love, really know what you like, know what you don't like, especially during those hard times. Figure that out. Figure out what brings you joy during the most challenging times, so you don't go seek it from other people, or from or things, or drugs or alcohol, or whatever the case may be. Figure out if sitting in a park eating a sandwich brings you joy and brings you happy and brings you a sense of peace and takes your mind after that, do that. So when the next challenging thing comes, okay, I'm about to go sit in this park and eat this sandwich and just
Right.
be and just have my moment, and then just let whatever the Lord is trying to say or figure it out after this, just like whatever calms you in that moment. And I have learned that has helped me a lot along my journey. In my current profession, I love what I do, but advocating for what is right in education, when it's so bureaucratic, when it's so political, when there are so many laws that's trying um, to impede on the work that you're trying to do, just so students, underserved, marginalized, underrepresented students, can get an education, and you have to like explain every little single little detail. It's like, ma'am, sir, and it could be very challenging. And
Mm,
then I have to remind myself, and I have to take those moments, and I have to take myself on that date, take myself on that walk, take myself to that concert, whatever the case may be, so I can just have a moment of joy, of peace, and then get back to the work that God has called me to do. So that's what
Love
I was
that. Love that. Love that. Very sound advice. Love date yourself. I love, and you said, and even with that, like I said, I date myself, whether I'm in a relationship or not. I take that time to love on
saying.
me, to show me,
Mhm.
to remind me that I'm worth it, that that I'm deserving of this time alone, to whether it's just like you said, to reflect on life, or whether it's just to simply just go out and have fun, whatever that
Mhm.
is, such powerful message in that. I love, and I love asking this question to people because everybody has all their different ways of doing,
Mhm.
and you haven't neglected the fact of obviously having your conversations with with God, and taking it in prayer
Mhm.
and all of that. But even as a believer, there's nothing wrong as believers for you to do things other than talk to
Yeah.
God. It's not, that's not on the do not do list where God says you can't have other,
Yeah.
enjoyments or outlets, if you will. Obviously, we want to keep them in line with what would be of His
Mhm.
will for us, and not be harmful to us or harmful to others. But God didn't say we couldn't have fun and be a believer
Mhm.
too,
Or
so.
eat. Or even if you, I like to eat. I like to try new restaurants, and everybody doesn't like the food that I like, so I just go by myself. So it's like little things like that. It doesn't have to be like I think we get caught up with the as Christians, we set these expectations. Um, and at the end of the day, like once you, as a believer, it just comes natural. You don't have to remind yourself to talk to God. You don't have to
Right.
remind yourself to do the. You can have fun. You can enjoy your life. You know your foundations. You know your restrictions, and you can do out you peace, and that brings you joy, and that brings you solace. So
Absolutely.
God had a sense of humor too.
I believe
So
that
you can laugh.
wholeheartedly. Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, Makeda, this has been such a pleasure talking with you, hearing about your journey and your story, and just how it all pieces together from the very beginnings to where you are today, and how you're just again walking in that and making impact, and just sharing all of the gifts that God has placed in you to make the lives of others better, but at the same time not neglecting yourself along the way. So it's definitely been a treat hearing this, and I know I've been blessed. I know my listeners have been blessed. But as is customary, before I let you go, I do want to take this opportunity to, as we do here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, I want to take this opportunity to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to love on you, to lift you up in prayer. So, if there's anything exciting that you got going on, whether it's in the present or coming down the pipe, whether it's something professional related or something personal related, if you would share that with us, we want to celebrate you in this moment.
Yeah, so I have an exciting venture that I am working on that will, of course, have to do with children and service and giving back. And so that keep an eye out for that. I don't want to speak on it quite yet, but it would have to do with a lot of scholarship and consulting and preparation and things of that nature for students who are looking to go into higher education. Um, I am getting back into the theater world. I took a break for a little bit, so I will be back on the stage. So look out for me on something soon
All
on the
right.
stage if you want to see me perform in that arena. That is another outlet of mine that I miss dearly, performing and being on stage. So yes, and then just continuing with my work and my profession. We have a new 2-year college that we are launching at Butler University. It's going to be a commuters college. So if there's anyone in Indianapolis with any students who are interested in that arena, we're more than happy. But just continuing to see where my next chapter takes me and enjoying life.
That is
Enjoying life.
awesome.
Life is short, and I just want to enjoy it.
That is awesome. Is there a particular, if anybody wants to, again, kind of keep up with what you're doing or connect with you in any way to be of support or find out more information? Is there a best way to reach out to you? Or
Yeah, so I will be making announcements on my Instagram page. So it's just Makeda Lands, Makedalands on Instagram. So some announcements will be coming soon there.
all right. Well, you heard it here, audience. As you can see, Makeda is doing a lot of different things right now, impacting the world, pouring into young people, and just living, as we said earlier, she's living her best life.
Living my
You
best.
know, so if you want to keep up with her and follow her, and like I said, be of encouragement and support, even if it's nothing more than keeping her lifted in your prayers and or just letting her know good job, just keeping her encouraged. Feel free to do that and connect and follow with her accordingly. And again, if you've enjoyed what we've talked about today, our content, our format, just what we're doing here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, please share, please subscribe, please like, please comment, because this is what it's all about. We want to encourage, we want to uplift, we want to pour into others, being transparent in the sharing of our stories with the hopes that you might draw some nuggets, some gems that we're dropping in the process that you can apply immediately to your life. But most importantly, it's an opportunity for us on this show to glorify God and let you know how important a relationship of God is. And so if you haven't made that decision, I promise you, to make that connection, to be in relationship with him will be the best decision you've ever made in life. Myself, Makeda, we're not telling you something that we heard. We're telling you something that we know firsthand. He loves us unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for us. He can help you fine tune and figure out what is your exact purpose in life. What were you meant to do? How can you use those gifts that he specifically imparted inside of you to be the best version of yourself? So again, this is a relationship you don't want to do without. You don't want to leave him out of any aspect of your lives. And so, again, remember here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep hanging in there. You keep persevering. You keep leaning into God and trusting his guidance, his direction, allowing him to be your eyes and ears to navigate you through life, especially during those difficult moments, because he is the ultimate comforter. He's the ultimate problem solver. And as I stated earlier, he loves you unconditionally and wants nothing but the best for you. So until next time, you take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you again. Have a good evening.